What's up guys, it's here talking, welcome back to my channel. On today's video, I'll be making a full review for the Romancing Festival Misty banner that brings 4 new SaGa Frontier 2 styles, with Misty being a debuffer, Rich being a slash and fire specialist that can improve slash and fire squads, Ginny that is a support for clubs, and Gustaf that is a damage dealer but also a specialist for challenge wells. Okay, let's start talking about Misty. She's the best character of the banner by far. She probably has the best status distribution in the game so far as well, because she has 120% endurance and Wield. Those are tank values. And then she has 120% agility and 135% intelligence, alongside 74% charisma. Remember that Misty does not use ScherBR or dexterity, so this doesn't really matter at all. So, very good status distribution indeed. She has a 40% damage increase at all times. When attacked, she reduces damage taken by 25% at all times as well. And she also has a heat up of 20% every turn, max of 5 times for 100% max from turn 5 onwards. And then another defense up, decreasing damage taken by 15%, 5 times multiplicatively. Besides, she starts the fight with 11 BP, and she also starts turn with extra 3 for a total of 6. She buffs her own intelligence every turn by 25%. Has another heat up, this time 30% max of 5 times for extra 150% damage increase. Then when she lands an attack, she chases 2 times with Nocturne Plus. Nocturne Plus is an 8 power attack, blunt and shadow damage, that has a chance to debuff the enemy SGR, agility, and intelligence by 10% because this is rank 1. But it's 2 times, meaning that you can debuff those 3 status by 20% total. When she chases on overdrive, she's going to chase with skill 3. We'll be talking about that in a few. And end of turn, she gets a total of 45 points of OG Gauge. She enters overdrive every 2 turns easily. Then let's talk about Sinister Aura, her main gameplay. On the start of a battle, she triggers it 2 times for all surviving allies, but in every turn she also triggers it. At the start of the fight, you have it triggered 3 times. But what does it do? Sinister Aura will trigger different effects when your characters are attacked. If it's a single target attack, only one will trigger. If it's an AoE attack, all of them will trigger it versus the enemies. So, one trigger is 5% SGR and intelligence debuff. That's right, it's medium, but it's just 5. You will then buff your own SGR and intelligence, but this time by 15%, and will also grant yourself an attack boost of 20% damage increase for 2 turns and stack. Okay, but you have 3 stacks of Sinister Aura, because 2 coming from the start of battle and 1 coming from the start of a turn. This will be multiplied by 3. So you will be actively debuffing the enemy SGR and intelligence by 15%, self-buffing your SGR and intelligence by 45%, and getting 60% attack boost. That seems interesting, right? And 15% debuff if all enemies get it, and 5 characters trigger. That's 75% debuff for all enemies. So that is actually very good, because it's enough to reach 0 damage sometimes in boss fights. And that's just the first trigger. If the enemy attacks you again, you'll be debuffing it again by 75%, if it's an AoE. And then you will then be self-buffing once more by another 45% and getting yet another 60% attack boost. A lot of effects. If you could keep this up, it will be impressive, right? And you can. That's the case. Okay, so let's go and discuss this main gameplay. The first problem that you have is that you need to be hit in order to trigger. So you have to choose your fights. Misty is designed for boss fights where the enemies uses AoE. But Misty will need to debuff the enemy with something before the enemy can even attack, because if it attacks you without being debuffed, it would have applied ailments on the first hit, and that would be a problem. But Misty can actually help with that. The third skill, Asteroid Noir, is a single target fast blunt and shadow attack. Now when the attack hits, guarantees a debuff of SGR and intelligence. It doesn't even check the enemy will, by 20% each. That's okay. And then she will chase with Nocturne Plus, that can debuff SGR, agility, and intelligence by 10% each. So that is 20, 30, 40. 40% SGR and intelligence debuff. This is a very high value already. And she then grants Sinister Aura 2 times for only 1 turn for the squad. So she already applies every turn, remember? But then she can keep giving 3 times if you use Asteroid Noir. She doesn't have that much BP, she only has 6 per turn, so she needs BP batteries. If you are bringing Gustaf and the enemy is attacking you with AoE 3 times, you generate extra 3 just from Gustaf alone. If you have Katarina, she gives another 2, for example, or Leon, or Sheree. And you can keep Asteroid Noir up to have the best debuff. But you actually don't need that. Remember that she gets 45 points of OG Gauge. Okay, 45 points of OG Gauge means that she gets into Overdrive every 2 turns. If you are not on Overdrive, use Asteroid Noir. You're gonna apply 3 Sinister Aura. If you are on Overdrive, you can decide to use Shade Soul instead. Why? Because on Overdrive, she always chases with Asteroid Noir. And you have 1 from the turn, and the other 2 via chase. You still have 3 Sinister Aura active. And Shade Soul is good enough. It also debuffs SGR and intelligence by 15%, alongside the extra Nocturnal Chase, you actually be debuffing at least 35. And that is usually enough to stop enemy from applying ailments on you. So, Asteroid Noir, with not on Overdrive, Shade Soul on Overdrive. But you can sometimes have enough BP to keep using Asteroid Noir every turn. And on Overdrive turns, you have 5 Sinister Aura. In those moments, you're going to stop the enemy from doing damage in the first hit. And if he uses the Fire Weakness to try to do damage against you again, you'll be debuffed again. It's interesting, although the first hit from the enemy will still do high damage on you. But anyway, you can debuff the enemy, and Misty is super fast. She can at least protect you most of the time. Because Misty has to attack the enemy to then apply the effects on the party, at least the additional ones, she does not work super well with Hana squads unless you add some very specific characters. For example, in Hana squads, you want the enemy to attack before you, so Misty will be on delay as well. But if she is on Overdrive every turn, you can actually make usage of it. For example, Hana also combos well with Hawk, because Hawk has 2 turns defense boosts. And then you can actually still have something working on the next turn, since the defense boost will trigger when the enemy attack, then it lasts to the next and you can stack. But Hawk also gives you OG points. If you are hit 2 times, you can get up to 30 points. And then there are Cordelia. Cordelia will also trigger Endurance and Will buffs when you are hit. And then she can give you 15 points of OG Gauge, up to 2 times per turn. In those situations, you can get Misty to Overdrive every turn in a Hana squad, for example, and then she will be the only one overdriving, while everyone gets the benefit of all the effects. Being on Overdrive means that Misty attacks before boss, and you can keep everything. But this is very hard to make, and Misty will work well in any squad where she can go first, and the new formation over Accelerate is a very good one to use Misty with. Okay, so generally you have at least 3 Sinister Aura. If you are playing by the gimmicks, you can have as much as 5 if you have enough BP. But 3 is good enough because it will debuff the enemy SGR and intelligence by 75% per hit. So it easily goes to 0 damage super fast. But bosses will keep changing their mechanics in order to block Misty, and sometimes Misty is not as good as Real Queen. But let me talk about something that you should be using on turn 1. For example, Falling Comet is an AoE attack that can only be used once and will cast Morale Down Large to the enemy, decreasing the damage by 35% at the source, and then 3 stacks of attack down that decreases damage by 30% at the source as well. So you will take very low damage for 3 turns, but you should still be worried about the intelligence of the enemy to avoid being inflicted with ailments or be debuffed. So use Falling Comet, then next turn you can use Asteroid Noir and then Shade Soul, or Asteroid Noir if you have enough BP all the time. That still guarantees at least 3 stacks of Sinister Aura, and will debuff the enemy by 75% when he uses an AoE. But then again, this is better when attacked by AoE. If the enemy uses too many single target attacks, the debuff value will be a little inconsistent. At least you can guarantee debuffs via either Asteroid Noir, that debuffs at least 40%, or Shade Soul, that debuffs 35%. And that will be mostly enough. Because she also changes, her damage is not that bad. We already have lots of hit ups, a total of 265 damage potential, means that Misty is probably the best debuffer after Real Queen. Because Real Queen will still be more useful than Misty in many scenarios, but that would depend on the boss gimmick. Real Queen has that very useful Sacrificial Fear that allows her to debuff SGR, Endurance, Dexterity, and Intelligence. See that there is Dexterity here included as well. That is the reason why Real Queen is usually better than Misty. She also applies Defense Down and can debuff the defense of the enemy by so much that it amplifies her damage by quite a lot too. She also debuffs without having to really attack. The thing is, if the enemy removes debuffs by the start of turn, Real Queen loses most of her effects. And she was made for only one enemy fight, where Misty can actually work for multiple enemies. So they are actually side grades, and the best debuffers in the game right now, Celus and Poe, are still good by themselves, but not the best ones in most scenarios. Misty is so good that she deserves a 5 out of 5. Very good character, just in a bad banner. Now, let's talk about the next character. That will be Rich. He has 121% SGR and then 121% intelligence. He's a hybrid and kind of suffers a little from having hybrid status. 97% endurance and 96% will alongside 96% agility. That should have been higher because of the way he works, but it's still okay. Now, he reduces damage taken for everyone by 30%. For being a hybrid, that's actually pretty good. Then he decreases damage taken again by 30 to himself, and always increases damage potential by 40%. On the start of a turn, he grants the enemy weak marker that will apply slash defense down to the enemy that decreases the defense by 10% only when you attack with slash, and also weak marker for heat that decreases the defense to heat when using heat attacks by 10%. Both last for 2 turns and stack. Rich has attacks that have both slash and heat, so for him every hit means 20% defense down, but it may not be the case for every other character in the party. Then, on the start of a turn, he also grants all surviving allies slash fighting spirit. When you use a slash attack up to 2 times, you'll be healing for around 400. You will get 2 extra BP for using slash, and also buff your endurance and will by 15%. If your character has a chase, you already guarantee 2 healings, total of around 800, 4 BP, that's insane, and then 30% endurance and will buff. He also grants Heat Fighting Spirit. This one, when you are using heat attacks, you are going to buff your SGR and Intelligence by 15% or 30 if you attack 2 times. You will also apply a heat attack boost that improves heat damage by 45%, lasts for 2 turns and stack, up to 90 if you use chase attack, and also a normal attack boost that increases 10% damage for 2 turns and stack. In my opinion, even though you will not have the heat attack boost that increases 45%, the slash part is better if you are planning on bringing Rich to slash squads. For heat squads, I know I have been talking about that. We don't have a definitive leader, but you can actually combo him with many other characters. Even Wield, for example, they work well together. But slash is easy to find. We use slash all the time, and they will get 4 extra BP just by being on Rich squads most of the time if they have chases. Okay, then when he attacks, he will be guaranteeing a defense boost for all surviving allies that decreases damage taken by 10% only for that turn. If he is attacking with skills, he will grant all surviving allies a slash attack boost that improves slash damage by 40% and lasts for 2 turns. You have to see that there are no limits to this trigger, and we will talk about that more in a few. When using spell attacks, he will then grant all surviving allies a heat attack boost that also improves heat damage by 40% for 2 turns and stack. Okay, like I said, Slash is easier to build, and this can actually improve the damage of very strong characters like Kihachi, Johan, and Gustaf too. Now, it's easier to talk about his skills. Skill 1 is called Defensive Flame Slash. It's single target, skill based, slash and heat, recover his HP by 400, and grant himself a guard up small that decreases damage taken by 12%, but does not stack. Okay, so this will trigger the slash attack boost. And when he uses this skill, he also chases with Dual Flame Slash. Dual Flame Slash is another skill that hits the random enemies 2 times with E power. That's nice because you are actually attacking 3 times here. It's stronger than triple S attacks, and you will be triggering defense boost twice and the slash attack boost twice as well. So that's 80% slash damage increase. Sadly, this guy should have had a high agility in order to attack before your other characters, like 110% even or higher. Now, the second one is a spell, Flame Slashing Wave. Single target, hit and slash, same elements, but you have to use a fire elemental weapon, and it will grant the user an attack boost. On max level, it will improve damage potential by 15% for 2 turns and stack. It does have a little higher power, it's D instead of E, and it will trigger the second effect, the heat attack boost, 40%, 2 turns and stack, and will chase with Wall Flame Spin. That is also a spell, much like the other one, 2 hits of E power, and then another heat attack boost for a total of 80%. Both techniques will then apply 2 defense boosts, so minus 10% 2 times to the party. Okay, but then his main gameplay is to use skill number 3 actually. Sword Flame combination, it's fast, at least he fixed it himself, and still have problem if you have other fast attackers in the party that have higher agility, but he activates Dual Flame Slash and Dual Flame Spin in that order. What is this? Okay, it's the chains attacks, Dual Flame Spin and Dual Flame Slash. But then the game says that if you use skill number 3, you are going to chase again with Dual Flame Slash and Dual Flame Spin. What does that mean? Okay, we have to understand this. You will actually use 2 skills and 2 spells. What does that mean? 4 defense boosts, and 2 slash attack boosts, and 2 heat attack boosts. For Rich himself, he will benefit from all the boosts that he applies, but like I said, it's hard to make usage of both effects since Kihachi is slash but not heat, and Johan is slash and pierce, Gustaf is slash and blunt. But then look, his damage will be very high, and it generates BP easily as well because of the other effects. Remember that the enemies already have weak marker. He would then get 4 extra BP just by his slash fighting spirit, while also triggering the attack boost, heat attack boost, SGR and intelligence buffs. All of those will trigger easily on max potential by use of skill 3. He wants to keep using this skill. It is 8 hits that do more than the hits from Kihachi. Kihachi has 24 hits, so he cannot beat Kihachi, but you are looking on a character that decreases damage taken for the party by 30%, applies many different effects, so you get what I'm saying. His damage is good, and he provides support. If you cannot use Kihachi because you are lacking support, Rich is good, but he can also even amplify Kihachi's damage. Okay, there are other characters that will work well with Rich, and they are Firebringer, because Firebringer has slash and hit damage, and he also decreases damage taken to the party. He can inherit a monolith down skill. He can also give you guard up and phantom. He can debuff, and his damage will be amplified by a lot. There is a version of Noel that is also slash and hit, the past version, and this one actually is full offensive oriented. It's not as good as the current one, but it's also good. Then in the near future there will be a version of Aldora that we don't have yet. There is also Gustaf from the same banner. He's also slash and hit, so they will all benefit double times. But you don't need, if you just go for slash benefits, Rich will always provide enough. But like I said, his damage is not as high as a real nuker, but it's good enough that he deserves a place in some squads. I believe that it's still not as good as Johan. Johan already increases slash damage potential for parties, and he deals much more damage overall. His main gameplay is to block and evade and get into overdrive every single turn. So Johan is the definitive slash buffer right now, and Rich is at least better defensively, but cannot reach as much damage. Still, nonetheless, a very good character. I believe he deserves 4 out of 5. As for inheritance, he does not need any, but you can actually make usage of Rising Nova Plus because this buff breaks, but then you are not going to get any chase. You will just kinda apply some effects for your older characters and use him as a buff breaker. There are better buff breakers in my opinion, especially Noel from recent banners. The next one will be Ginny, and she has very average status. Nothing stands out, just 97% endurance and 97% will, and the other status are just bad. On the start of a battle, she then grants a 50% blunt attack boost for everyone, and she has 5 EP per turn, and also grants Digger's Encouragement that can trigger once per turn. And if you use a blunt attack, you're going to get 1 BP, you are going to self-heal for around 400 and apply all surviving allies a defense boost that decreases damage taken by 10%, lasts for 1 turn. That part is not that bad, and we should even compare that to 4 News, because latest 4 News have it a similar way. You can see here BP, HP, and a defense boost. That's the same thing. And even though the Elemental Enhanced code is just the same thing as well, we are missing out on the cold attack boost and the other status buff. Besides, when she's attacked, she decreases damage taken by 30%, and then another 30% for everyone if all allies are still alive, alongside 10% damage increase for everyone. She then has another 20% damage increase just to herself, and 5 stacks of defense up that decreases damage taken by 15%. So even though her endurance and will are not high, she does have multiple defensive layers. Not much damage taken, but also can be inflicted with ailments in future fights. Nonetheless, when recovery actions are made, she would then grant all surviving allies defense boost that decreases damage taken by 25%, and it lasts for 2 turns and can stack. Then she will grant the target, just 1 target, the nullified damage to indirect attacks. Why? Because she relies on having to use Earth Heal Plus to trigger the effect. That can be used 5 times per battle. It will recover more than 2000, cleans ailments, and also grant an end of turn recover HP of 400 for 5 turns. The skill itself is not bad, but at the current game, single target spells are not that great. Even though this character will be healed, everyone will get a defense boost. So there's something. And at the end of every 5 turns, you're going to get 2 extra uses of Earth Heal Plus. You could even use it 5 times and then get another 2 to use it every single turn for 7 turns, but I don't see much reason to use this. Then she has skill 1, that is a free attack that grants all surviving allies a guard up small that decreases damage taken by 12%. It's just for 1 turn and will not stack. Or skill number 3, that is an interesting one, Populon's Moment. It's fast, but her agility is not that high. If the enemy has fast skill, it will probably attack you before Ginny can use this skill. But it will grant all surviving allies a defense boost that decreases damage taken by 25% and lasts for 2 turns. So if you use it twice in a row, you have 2 effects. And then you have a 50% chance to trigger an attack boost that improves damage potential by 30% for 2 turns. Why does this have a very high chance only, not a guarantee? And then she has a 50% chance to buff SGR, agility, love, and charisma by 40%. Why? Again. And then a 50% chance to heal the HP of everyone by around 1,500. Unreliable. Okay, I don't like this. It's 10 BP already. The damage is low. They could have just guaranteed it all. And the current game is just so crazy that this will not make any impact. But I don't know, it seems like they wanted to decrease the value of the character. She already has low status. She already has just one part of 4 news. Why would they just stop the character from being good? Who knows? So that's the reason why she's so hard to justify. No inheritance makes much sense. You can get Happy Souvenir if you want to recover extra BP when you don't have, but she's better off just using skill number 3 and using Earth Heal if needed. The buffs are totally bad because her intelligence is not high. What you can do though is to use Fluffy Castella as inheritance, since this gives you another 5 healings that also gives end of turn recover. This time just for 3 turns though. But again, single target healings in this game means very little. Ginny is the less interesting of the characters, and I think she only deserves a 3.5 out of 5. The next one is Gustaf, and this guy has the highest SGR in the game right now, 145%. This doesn't mean that much, but it's interesting. Higher than Kihachi. 104% agility and just 96% endurance and wield are kinda low. Moving on, he starts the fight with a lot of different effects. He increases the max BP for everyone by 10 and lasts for just 5 turns. It will eventually fade away. He will then recover 5 BP for everyone, so everyone starts with 15. Actually, he starts with 25 because of another passive, and he will then reduce the cost of BP skills by 10 to himself for 2 turns, so that you can use Gustaf as a farmer, but also as a specialist for wells. On the start of a round, he also grants up all surviving allies guard up large, that decreases damage taken by 35% for 5 turns. After 5 turns, disappears. But it's the start of a round. If there are 2 rounds, I don't think this will pass into another round. Then he has 20% damage increase at all times, and another 40 when landing weak attacks. He also reduces damage taken at all times by 30%, even though he was not designed for normal fights. Then, on the start of battle, he also grants himself this skill called Assault Decree, that will activate 3 times per battle. On the start of a turn, they will all give an action order up of extreme effect. This will increase their likeness to attack before the enemy, and if you're using fast skills, even better. Then will also give all surviving allies an attack boost that increases damage potential by 50% just for that turn. It will also buff SGR, Dexterity, Agility, and Intelligence by 35%. For 3 turns on the start of a fight. That's it. And lastly, on the start of a round, he will also give you 5 weak attack boosts. Each one has 40% damage increase, and they will start to fade away one by one from turn 6 onward. Okay, and that is for everyone, not just for Gustaf. That's why I said that he is a good character for challenge wells, but even for some fights where you can try to finish an enemy in 6 turns. That happens a lot actually, especially if you're running specialists like Johan, Kihachi, that will improve the damage of your squad. You can also see that his attacks are designed for wells. He has twin flare / H and V. One is a row attack, the other one is a column attack, and then you have a single target attack as well. All of them have slash and hit. It would have been much better for him to have a strong AoE attack, because the single target one is just a little bit stronger than the other versions. You could still use either the row or the column attack to a single enemy, and that would not make any impact. But they decided to give him a single target attack. He does have AoE, Flaming Steel Wave, that opens with B power, and then he chases with a single target attack. I don't think that's too great. And he still has a defensive stance to skills and spell via Brave Duality. You could use this for some short fights as well, while still improving damage for older characters. Reduce his damage, improve the other ones. And keep them alive via the decreased damage from stance. And that's it. There's nothing else that would make much sense. Maybe Sunder Plus, because this one is a 3 BP attack that can also buff STR after he loses his BP decrease, because that will then become a problem, since he only has 3 BP per turn. So Gustaf is just a character to help out with wells in very short fights. And for very short fights, I don't think Gustaf is the only character that can improve damage. We can already see Patrick helping out a lot. We also know about Silence, that also helps a lot. There is also Maria, that can give you a lot of effects too. So he's just here because he's a little more offensive than all of these other options. But nonetheless, he is the less impactful of all of them. Even Ginny can offer more because she can be used on Remembrance, and Gustaf will be forgotten as the time goes, even though he has very high SGR. He only deserves a 3.5 out of 5. Okay, so let's go back into the banner image, and to be honest, is this banner worth summoning for? Yes, but also no. I would care more about Misty than anyone else. I can live without him. The thing about Rich is that although he is good as he is right now, he is easily power creeped by future units, while Misty still has a very unique design that will help you in boss fights. Ginny is okay, but I feel like Wield is a little better than Ginny, and Gustaf is just about damage and extra support for wells. What do you get on wells? 100 gens. I will give this banner a Silver Plus award. The problem is that it is competing with Gustaf banner that I gave a Gold Plus award that has two very interesting units. Gustaf and Johan, and even Cordelia is a very useful one. So I would suggest you to skip this banner if you don't have any gens, summon on Gustaf banner, get at least Gustaf and Johan, and if you decide to pull here, you should stop at Misty. And you could get rich only if you are very close to a PT after getting Misty. But the other characters will not matter at all, in my opinion. So that's my opinion. What is yours? Please say here in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't. And if you want to support the channel, there are links on the description. I hope to see you soon in the next one. Goodbye.